episode 73 of Fist of the North Star 1 point. The keyword for this episode is going to be serious. Not serious as in I'm serious right now, but Sirius, the star. This is the first time in this series that I use as a keyword a proper noun, as I want to avoid doing that, of course, because I want these keywords to be descriptive of something, as in they have a meaning, so you get something and it, let's say, summarizes the episode, and I make 1 point that revolves around it. But I'm going to cite 2 reasons as to why I do it, because we're going to get a few proper nouns like this too later, just a few, and it's going to be legitimate, hopefully. And also, precisely concerning this episode, because really I'm going to talk about this, so I couldn't think of another keyword that would really mean all of these things that constitute this 1 point that we're going to make in this video. So the keyword is serious, and so of course we're going to be talking about 𝚎𝚎 in this video. What I want to talk about is how 𝚎𝚎 may really be this kind of character that you think is forgettable, and because he's portrayed as a big guy, right? He's important, but then you may think that compared to Ray or Shu, he really is not that important. You just forget about him, but he's actually important. He means a lot. First, I want to talk about his position compared to the Hokuto and the Nanto. I don't know what you think, but the first time I saw him, and even in general, when I see 𝚎𝚎, he reminds me much more of a Nanto dude. Even though he's serious, it's a completely different thing. But he reminds me just his looks, and even his way of fighting. It seems he's severing the body from the outside. So how is Sirius really different to the Nanto as this other, like, as this thing that is something else than Hokuto? So you have Hokuto, Nanto. You kind of see these two as a dichotomy, as they are. We say it's the yin and the yang, and one doesn't go without the other, and one kind of contains the other. So I'm going to develop this later, by the way, if you have a few questions that come to your mind. But how is Sirius, let's say, out of this dichotomy or what is his position exactly? Well, to me, he looks much more like a Nanto guy, as I said. But then, his precise style is very interesting, in my opinion, because it's ice, right? So it's freezing cold, so that's his thing. And that's very interesting, because that seems to me to be a perfect opposite of what the Hokuto is, which is that you blow up electricity. So it's burning and it's kind of like fire, and boom, it blows up. And cold and freezing, and it's more stable. The former is like explosive, but this one is more stable. So it's a very good, perfect opposite to the Hokuto. But the way he uses his martial art seems that it's a fighting style that, in practice, is more like the Hokuto. What I mean by that is that the Hokuto is making you, it hits you from the inside. The Nanto is severing the body from the outside. These are symbolically very important, of course, right? Well, when 𝚎𝚎 fights, when he's doing the 𝚎𝚅, like so many characters in this anime, right, the body parts just disappear. That's the cool thing. It's not simply just you have the body and you're just severing it. It's you have this body part, well, now it's absent. Kind of like the Hokuto makes you disappear, and that's the point of chaos. It's absence, chaos, darkness, the yin, right? You just disappear. Nothing. Which reminds you of this post-apocalyptic world of absence of meaning, absence of, you lose purity, innocence, you lose hope, and so on and so forth. We talked a lot about these. 𝚎𝚎 has that. He has I'd say, a Nanto-looking Hokuto way of fighting, if you know what I mean. And that's the way he really gets to be in between. His style is first described as being cruel. And he tells Kenshiro, by the way, you think I'm cruel? I'm not cruel. Anyway, but it comes across cruel. Of course, this is very interesting, as he's this serious, the star, not serious, and S-E-R-I-O-U-S, but the star, this intermediate position, as he's not a polar star. He doesn't, like Souther, Nanto is the constellation of the heavens, or the Hokuto. He's more of an observer, and I'd say a supervisor of the two constellations, of the two other martial arts, as this thing that is kind of in between. This would make a lot of sense when you think of his actual status and position compared to other characters. He's the brother of someone. I'm not going to develop this at all, and even if we get it a few episodes later, it's not enough, because the fact that this makes him related to the Nanto is something you get much later. But, well, I said it, I don't say more than this. And then he gets to be also some sort of relative to Kenshiro, which is the Hokuto. Right, well, some sort of relative, I guess. Right. And so this is the way he's close to the two. And he has a style that is close to the two. And he's some sort of supervisor. What is going on between all of these? And I haven't developed yet, but I have mentioned how 𝚎 is kind of a chaos within order, because 𝚎 wants to be, and we have to talk about these, but we'll develop these in the next video, hopefully. That 𝚎 is an interesting candidate to be the successor of the Hokuto Shinkan, because he wants to be a ruler. Now, that's not really in the code of the Hokuto Shinkan. You have to stay hidden, come out, save the world, and go back. That's chaos. And 𝚎 kind of does the opposite of that, but then he wants to rule with terror. Sounds like chaos to me, but we'll develop this later. But for now, what I will say, and I'll develop it later, is that 𝚎 gets to be kind of Nanto-ish in that regard, and of course Kenshiro is just Hokuto. And Ryuga is in between, and he's like, which is going to be the great tree? And this is the main and final thing I want to say about Ryuga as this lone star. He's a man, he's very difficult to understand, and Kenshiro wonders about that. He's like, is that another man who just wants power and conquer, right, abominably? Here's the thing to understand about Ryuga. It's pretty difficult, but it's so interesting. And it's a great example to understand just things in general in this anime. Ryuga is a curious man. That's it. What would be the world, what would be humanity without curiosity, right? Maybe the most important figures in history we remember are just curious, and they could sacrifice anything for curiosity. He just wants to know, what is the future going to be like, what the future needs, what works. He was convinced by 𝚎 with rooting with terror that actually works, right? We're going to develop this in the next video, because we get the development of that. But then he wonders about Kenshiro. Could that work? Right. And so he's in between. And the reason he seems antagonistic is because he will just sacrifice for this fate. And you may think it doesn't make sense, but that's his fate. Why would it be fine to understand Souther's fate, 𝚎's fate, Toki's fate, the fate of all of these guys that are completely different? But this one is a bit peculiar, but it's his fate. And then he's gonna, thanks to this fate of his that he follows, he's gonna make possible great change as well in Kenshiro, and right. So he will serve a great purpose when you think about it at the end. So doesn't it make it fine? And so this is the main development I want to make about Ryuga, and of course we're going to get a few more episodes about him, and so hopefully we're going to try to develop this smoothly.